I'm really excited to introduce you guys, if you haven't already met, Gail Pope and Karen Wylie. They are doing wonderful work in the area of animal hospice and animal long-term care. Together, they've created the BrightHaven Caregiver Academy to support pet parents through life-changing diagnoses with a focus on presence, love, and honoring each animal's unique journey right through the final breath and beyond. Just amazing work that they're doing. How did you meet Kathleen and Leah all those years ago?
We were just starting to offer an education program and inviting practitioners to come and teach weekends or days, whenever. Kathleen came and we fell in love. She fell in love with the animals, they fell in love with her. Her presence was just wonderful. The sanctuary had maybe 80 or more animals, dogs and cats. They were all senior, special needs, or getting close to the end of life. There were some in wheelchairs, there were cats scooting on their bottoms. It was not your normal, if you go into someone's house with animals, it wasn't what you would normally expect to see. So Kathleen was fairly quiet. Kathleen, she was sweet and wonderful. Little by little, as she met all the animals, she was just seeing the glow, the life, the happiness, the normality and the abnormality, if you like. And then we sat down to have a cup of tea and talk about business. And she said, "Oh my goodness, today has been a very special day for me. Today I learned to see with my heart and not my eyes." So that was just our beginning. That was the first time I met her. Then she started teaching at least once a month at weekends. Leah became one of her students. Kathleen and I were talking about who knows what in the kitchen, and Leah came in with a big shiny face and she said, "Oh, I'm just so excited and this is so wonderful, and it's really making me think that Reiki needs to be in more places. We need to help animals more. What about in shelters and something like that?" Kathleen said, "I volunteer at a local shelter and it's wonderful work. I really enjoy it." That began the conversation because Leah was like, "Can't we expand that? What can we do?" And that was the beginning of SARA.
When I went to study with Kathleen at Brighthaven, and it was such a special place. I was so really taken by how well cared for the animals were, but it was also very interesting to see bee bags hanging next to the cat sleeping on the thing and Joey running around in his little wheelies. It was really eye-opening and really beautiful and also heart-opening.
It was a wonderful environment for students to not only experience the good, the bad, and the ugly with the animals, but to experience working with energy with the animals and realizing that this was a partnership with the animal and it wasn't them necessarily doing it, was sharing.
I wanted to ask Karen how you guys met and started working together.
I kept thinking, geez, there's so much I would want to do differently before the loss to help in those decisions that each of us needs to make along the way before the animal dies. So the day I finished one certification, I found Animal Hospice Group. Gail is one of the four founders there, and went through that program for a few months. At the time, our graduation requirement was to meet with one of the four founders for 30 minutes. As luck would have it, I drew Gail as the founder that I would speak with. After 15 or 20 minutes, we both looked at each other through the Zoom screen. And Gail, correct me if I'm wrong, but Gail said something like, "My God, we've lived parallel paths." And I said, "Yeah, but we learned a lot of the same lessons." Then we just had a meeting of the minds and hearts, and that's 2.5 years ago. And we've been working together ever since.
Can you tell us more about the Brighthaven Caregiver Academy and how and why that came about?
So then, as usually happens, we just start going back and forth, developing our ideas until one of us says, "Okay, time for a Google Doc." We start outlining what we want to bring forward. Really, within 3 months of the first conversation, the first outline of us saying, what would we do differently if we're going to support pet parents from the moment of their pet's diagnosis? What would we want to do differently? And we started developing. So by August of that year, almost 2 years ago, we knew we were naming it BrightHaven Caregiver Academy and what we wanted to do. We just had a few delays along the way, and we went live with BCA in February. So we're developing courses. We have a membership community that allows us to support a pet parent literally from the moment they get a difficult diagnosis on their pet, and starting with where they are at that point. What support do they need when they leave the clinic? And then you start to have all those questions that you're thinking, I wish I'd asked my vet. Gail and I, of course, are not veterinarians, but we are both caregivers and longtime caregivers of our own pets. And we take that background and we're putting it into educational materials and tools to help pet parents along the way.
To me, it's really important because what I've found in Karen is somebody who not only mirrored my trajectory in the work that I've done. One thing that did concern me was that the work of BrightHaven, which is so special, not only to me, but to the many people whose paths have crossed BrightHaven's paths over the years. And it just seemed like I wanted the legacy to go on. So Karen appeared just at the time when it was like, ding, oh my God, I wonder if she realizes what she's getting into.
Scoop her right up.
Yeah.
Yes, now.
Can you describe your approach as holistic or holistic? Can you share what that means in practice, especially when supporting a pet after a life-changing diagnosis?
It's very simple, really, because all the work we do is very tied with Reiki and the Reiki precepts. It really is about balance, about love, it's loving care, it's the holistic part. We're caring for the whole being, body, mind, and spirit. Little by little over the years, I developed the menu because it was very clear that no matter what the illness, no matter the stage in life, the animals that came to us were all treated similarly. There were certain things like classical veterinary homeopathy became a way of life for us. Reiki became a way of life for us. All the different parts of the care for that one being became parts of our menu. But to us, the most important part of healing is love. And so the menu for healing is its proper name, but it's actually, we call it the love sandwich. And you can see it on our website. Plus, we're not focused only on the animal. It's the family unit, the caregiver, children, a spouse, whoever's involved in the love and the care of the animal is part of our family.
What I would add is that it's that philosophy that we're taking into the courses that we're developing and the tools and practices that we're trying to put together for pet parents to have an opportunity to work from. In fact, the living quality of life care assessment, we look at quality of life care a little differently. Very often, a pet's quality of life is only something that is looked at the very end of life. Sometimes it's even combined with the question, is it time to euthanize? That's not where Gail and I come from. So we felt very strongly that one of the first things we needed to develop was a very different quality of life care assessment that is ongoing for every pet parent to be looking at how their pet is doing. It also includes questions for the pet parent to be looking at how they're adapting the care that they provide along the way and how comfortable they are identifying when they might need support and when they might need to see their veterinarian. So we're trying to make sure the pet's perspective is in there and the spiritual perspective.
You both talked about animals choosing the time of their own transition. So can you share what that looked like and how Reiki may have supported that?
SARA came to me many years ago, still in BrightHaven. She came because of her health. She had plasmacytic lymphocytic stomatitis. The week before SARA died, we knew her time was coming. She collapsed. She could barely walk. Each day for 5 days, she went to a different room and she just sat in the middle of it. She would have a group of cats or dogs sit in a circle around her. I joined them because I had no idea what was going on. In those days, actually, I had a guru by the name of Vicky who actually practiced Reiki, but I was very fascinated by this kind of energy that I could feel. She was joined by these animals and the peace, the tranquility, the beauty. I had no idea really what was happening, but it was so special. Then on Sunday morning, she lay down to die. And she was in my arms, and she went through a very normal dying process, but she didn't die. Then every now and again, she would go into death throes and she wouldn't leave her body. My husband was with me. We were panic stricken. He wasn't. He said to me, Gail, why don't we call Vicky? Do you think she can help? So he called Vicky. She came on the phone and she talked me through a process. I was shaking, trembling, crying, sobbing, trying desperately to hold myself together with this cat who was alive but not alive. She asked me to envisage two silver cords. One joined us both from the umbilical cord, the other joined from the heart. She very gently talked me through it. And she said, okay, I'm going to count to 3, and then you're going to cut the umbilical cord and you're going to watch the heart cord stretch to eternity. And of course, I did my best. Sarah turned in my arms. She looked up into my face and she left. She just gave a little sigh and she left. So looking back all these years later on and knowing that Vicky was a Reiki master, she was on the telephone about an hour away. And yet, had she not been working with me to bring the peace, the energy that was needed for Sarah and for me too. So that's my story.
Gail has had so many wonderful experiences that she can share with us, and we are putting more materials together that help you prepare your pet for transition, but also prepare yourself.
So, Karen, what spiritual tools or practices have helped you and the families that you support during the final stages of life?
I'm very eclectic in my training, so I tend to pull in from various sources. I've been trained in Reiki in several traditions, some shamanic practices. The Native American practices typically call it a calling in of the ancestors, which is when you're using the names of those who have passed on and using that to anchor yourself and your pet. I have always found that helpful to envision that my pets are going to be meeting up very soon with people they have known and loved and other pets in our family that have gone on before. So I do that in a very ceremonial way almost every day, just talking with my animals of what they can expect and what's probably going to happen. I use a lot of animal communication practices as well. One of the most common is the belief that animals communicate more through pictures and images, perhaps more than even the words that they understand from us. I close my eyes and I really focus very much on trying to communicate visually to my animals. Whether I'm hands-on or hands-off with my Reiki, my animals also are soothed by these kinds of practices.
Well, I'm really looking at it because I do consultation work, and so I can see what other people's needs are. And when I'm talking to someone, they are focused on what's going on with their animal, what they can do, what they can't do, how they can do it. They're not focusing at all on themselves. So for me, the biggest gifts that I can give is to let them talk, then talk about the things that help with them healing, because this is a partnership. They're so worried about their animal that they're not living in the moment. They're not enjoying the time. We experience anticipatory grief before our animals die. If you recognize that, then you can actually be in the moment with your animal more. We know that smiling is contagious. We know that laughter is healing. Those kinds of things, we push them to the side because we're worried. Again, here comes Reiki. We need to concentrate on the being and not always the doing. There's so much to do towards the end of life or in a chronic or an acute illness that we unselfishly put ourselves to the side. Sometimes that doesn't work well enough. And I think that's one of my main things that I've learned in this area.
I think it's so important that we have people we can talk to about what's happening that aren't, oh, it's just an animal kind of thing. Because they're family members and
Yes.
it's really devastating for us. So I know you've written a lot of books, and I wonder if you could maybe give us the name of a book that you would recommend for this topic.
There are two. There's Follow Your Heart, which is all about navigating a terminal diagnosis, then Saw My Butterfly, which is related to literally saw my butterfly. It's self-explanatory at the end of life. We live in these houses that we call our bodies. And when the time comes to die, as a culture, we've become so fearful. And yet it is as natural as living and birthing. It is part of the great circle of life. Looking at the transition as transition and knowing that the furry, beautiful body I'm looking at isn't actually your loved one. It's the house they're living in. It's hard to make that separation, but if you can even understand it, I think that helps in the process so much, because you're helping them to step out of their house and you're honoring that house as the house that you both love.
I remember years ago when you spoke at the SARA retreat, and you would ask how many of you have ever sat with an animal who died naturally, and you were like no one. I hope that's changed over the years.
Yes, it is changing a little bit, mostly with veterinarians who have become holistically minded. The word integrative became the thing a few years ago. As we've expanded that piece in the middle where the holistic approach meets the conventional approach, it's a more comfortable place for veterinarians. Little by little, I think, particularly on the holistic side of that equation, they're starting to be a little open, but most of them have had no experience. They know what they know, and it's difficult to counsel a client when you actually don't have the experience. I guess I was born into this world to have the experience of hundreds of animal deaths, but it never removes your fear, because
Right.
as parents, we don't want our loved ones to suffer. That's the huge topic, but suffering is an emotional thing. It's not necessarily physical. So I think just learning to just take a deeper understanding of life and love is the base of all of it.
What would you and Karen want every Reiki practitioner or pet parent to remember as they sit beside an animal facing illness or transition?
It's just the underscoring that our pets do have ideas of their own as sentient beings. They can control when they leave us to some degree. So as you're sitting with an animal at end of life, it's not all about you having to make all the decisions. You don't pressure yourself that you have to be the one to determine when it's time. Your pet will guide the way for you.
I think that's one of the beautiful things about Reiki is that we're more open, especially when we're able to just be in the space with an animal. We have more awareness of what's transpiring that we might not have otherwise. How do you help your pet through the transition?
Having an understanding of what you may see transition for humans and for animals, if we're talking about the final act of transition, because dying is a process, death itself is a process. So it can be a long event. But I think learning what you can about that is probably the very first step. Let's face it, in this world, euthanasia has become the kindest way for a life to end for an animal. But we would challenge that and just say that sometimes euthanasia is absolutely the right decision, whether it be for the animal or for the caregiver who cannot care for that animal. But we like to look at it a little bit of a different way, in that for us, death is natural. It's a natural event. So that is our focus, with the knowledge that if that cannot be achieved for whatever reason, then we do have the ability to choose euthanasia.
We need to support pet parents basically on two different levels, because one is helping them understand the physical aspects of the dying process. But then, as we were saying earlier, for both Gail and I, the spiritual transition, the energetic transition that is taking place. So there's two different things happening, and it can be very helpful. People don't have to have any particularly strong or specific spiritual belief. If they believe that there might be something beyond themselves, if they get to that point, then the spiritual transition of their pet is often something that will be an amazing learning experience for them to have.
So nice to see you both.
Hey, Cherise, hi.
A question that I come across a lot, and even for myself, and I just want to know what your take is on it from the animal's perspective. I know animal parents are grieving and they don't want to show that grief to the animal because they think that they're going to create stress. So they try to pretend that nothing's really happening and that distances them from the animal, or they're overly emotional, or they sense that they're overly emotional, and that's creating another problem. So, how do you advise animal parents and caregivers to manage what they're feeling in the presence of the animal, and what is the effect on that animal?
Oh gosh, I think we all do it. We try to shield our children as well as our animals from our emotions. It sounds funny, but when you look at it as cat speaks cat, cat speaks dog, cat speaks human, and so do dogs. You turn it around and they're bilingual, multilingual. As humans, most of us aren't. Therein lies the difference. We don't seem to realize, or many people don't, because you're so absorbed in your caregiving and caring for this animal that you don't realize they understand. They know we're in the kitchen crying. They know we're in the bathroom mopping our eyes and they're, oh my God, I mustn't let him see me cry. So I try to open this up for people to understand they need to go and put their arms around their animal, as long as it doesn't hurt them. Just lie down and cuddle them and just share and care and do it all together, because it's the most healing thing you can do. Acknowledging grief together, to me, it's what it's all about.
Grieving together, grieving with them.
Yes.
They understand a lot more than we do most of the time, I think.
One day a volunteer came into BrightHaven. One of our animals had actually died. I think it may have been Bobby. She came in and the music was playing. I was cleaning litter boxes, doing laundry, stroking an animal, and just doing general daily life. She was there for a while, and then she said to me, I'm so sorry for your loss. So I said, oh, thank you. We talked a little about him, and she said, may I ask you why you're almost back to business as usual? She really made me stop and think. At first, I felt really guilty. I'm laughing and singing and scooping litter boxes where I should be sitting in the corner crying. This is terrible. What, am I so heartless? But then as I opened it up, I realized that, yes, I still miss them. Yes, I have my moments. But now we're into our 3-day process. So I've already got the animal set up in a beautiful honoring situation. The grief, that actual raw gut feeling, we did that together. I don't need to do that anymore. That's not present. Now, as I say, I hadn't quite realized how animals had taught me to grieve with them before they died and then allow honor and celebration afterwards. Not easy, but it makes sense when you really turn it upside down and think about it.
I just love the work you do. I'm sorry, I've lost my voice, a bit overwhelmed. It was so beautiful, but emotional. But thank you for the work that you do. And I was just wondering, is there a way to get involved? Because it really resonates with me.
Absolutely. We'd love you to, first of all, sign up for our email list at brightpathforpets.com so that you can learn about our podcast each week, the topics, when the episodes are released, what we're doing, and stay in touch with us. That'd be a great first step. We'd love to hear from you.
You could also consider joining us every Thursday, a cuppa and conversation. So we just invite members to come along and just join us for an hour. We talk about whatever comes up, whatever's topical for anybody.
So everybody, thank you so much for being here. I hope you guys have a great day. Just really want to thank again Gail and Karen for taking the time out of their busy days, helping us understand more about how we can help our pets, our families, our kids, and all of that when we're in ourselves as we're going through these things, which we're bound to encounter. Thank you, everyone, for your interest in what we're offering at SARA and what Gail and Karen are offering as well. Hope to see you all next time and take good care.
Thanks.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.